So welcome, everyone. My name is Dave Kirby. This is my co-host, Sean Domi. Want to thank you for joining us today. It's a day in the life of a successful voiceover artist with Miel Roman. Hi, Miel.
Hi, how are you guys today?
Good, good.
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 To get things started, we're going to talk to Miel a little bit about her background, her studio, her tips, and auditioning strategies, things like that. But we'd like to get your input as well, guys, for everyone watching, because this is for you. If you have questions that you'd like us to ask Miel, just go to the Q&A panel and we'll get to them as soon as we can. We're going to talk to her for a few minutes and kind of get up to speed, and then we'll take it over to some questions from you guys. So a little bit about our guest, Miel. After an attempt at a midlife career change, kind of took a rather unexpected and serendipitous turn. She went from being unemployed to getting her first voiceover gig just 1 week after receiving her mail order microphone. Less than 4 months after starting her voiceover career, she's now worked with over 20 clients. So, Miel, I mean, your success so quickly right out of the gate is, I don't want to say unprecedented, because some people do have it, but we generally try to help people manage their expectations. You haven't been doing this long. What did you do before you came to us?
Well, I was taking care of my mom for over a decade. She had an illness, and so I pretty much stayed home with her and took care of her. Prior to that, I'd worked for my sister. My sister had a restaurant, a pizza restaurant, Italian restaurant. And prior to that, I had worked at an agency that represented commercial illustrators in New York City. So I didn't have a background in voiceover work at all. And then after my mom passed away, I had been out of work for so long that I was, trying to figure out what to do. And my aunt had seen an advertisement for a paralegal school. So I decided to go to paralegal school for a year and get my certificate. And after I graduated in April of this year, I wasn't getting any bites on my resumes. And I started thinking, well, maybe, I'm sitting here at home. I'm not doing anything. I'm not earning any money. Let me try. I had taken a voice workshop the previous year. And so it was over a year since I took that. But I got my notes out and I thought, let me just try to look over my notes here and see if I can, get something going here. So I went online and I ordered some equipment from eBay and from a place called Sweetwater. And I received everything. And then within 1 week of receiving my equipment, I had my first voiceover job for $200. Yeah. So that's how it started.
And that right there, that covered your cost of your equipment then too.
That more than covered the cost of my equipment. And I figured if it's a fluke, at least I've covered the cost of my equipment, So, but it wasn't a fluke, and I kept getting jobs, and so I'm still shocked. Every time I get a job, I'm shocked
So
that somebody wants to hire me.
now because you just came to us in June, so this is
Right.
this is a really, really brand new career for you.
Yes.
So since June, what's happened?
God, in June, it seems like it was so long ago, but I can't believe it's only 4 months, but it just seems like years ago. I've been getting a lot of work from a lot of different clients. Not much has changed in the last 4 months. My job number has increased a lot. I started getting maybe a job every other week I'm getting about a job, maybe 2 jobs a week now. A job a week reliably. September's been my best month so far. I think I've had 7 jobs this month. Yeah. So it's just gone up steadily.
And I don't want to split hairs, but you can't say we're 4 months from June because we're still trying to enjoy the last remnants of summer.
That's
But
I don't know. I'm waiting for fall. It's hot down here.
So
it's hot in Georgia.
when you decided to jump in, did you work with a coach or what was the transition like?
No, like I said, I had taken a voiceover. I was driving to my sister's house one day. And, I was taking my paralegal classes. And one Sunday I was driving to my sister's house. And there's a radio station that has, on Sunday, that has, they interview local business owners. And they had a guy on one Sunday called Bob Carter. And he's a voiceover artist, and so is his wife, September Day Carter. And they have a studio in Norcross, Georgia, called the Neighborhood Studio Atlanta. And he was talking about this beginner's voiceover workshop that he was doing. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I wrote the information down. And again, I procrastinate. I waited about a week before I decided to sign up. And I went, and it was a good experience. It was a few hours, and he was very positive, and he told us what kind of equipment to buy, what not to buy. We recorded some demos in his studio. And so, it was good. And then a year went by. And I was, like I said, I was getting ready to graduate from paralegal school. So that was really the only like training I had, was just that one workshop with Bob Carter. And it wasn't really training. It was just more kind of an informational, thing. But it was very helpful, and he's very positive and very encouraging. And he gave some good advice about, because I had no idea like what kind of equipment to buy. And at that point, I still didn't really even realize that most voiceover artists work out of their homes. I was still picturing it like you kind of audition maybe from home, and then you go to a studio to do the work. I really didn't realize that most of it is done from people's home studios now. And I think that's something that's changed a lot in the last several years. But that's the only formal, anything close to training that I've had.
Now, you touched on the studio. We have had someone ask already, like, do you record in a home studio? Like, I mean, obviously, yeah, you're recording at home. Where we're looking at you right now, that doesn't quite look like a studio.
No, I'm in my dining room, because my studio, quote unquote, is my walk-in closet. And I had read that a lot of voiceover artists use their walk-in closet because the clothing is a good, baffle for the reflections, and it's carpeted, and I have some pillows on the wall, and there's clothes in front of me and clothes in back of me. So that's where I record, and it's kind of dark in there, and the Wi-Fi is not good in there, so that's why I'm sitting in my dining room. But yeah, it's my closet, and it seems to the acoustics just seem to be perfect in there, because I keep getting compliments on my sound quality. So hey, why mess with it? It's good. It works.
So everything that you've done so far with your equipment, that's what you started out with. You haven't upgraded yet. Cool.
Yep. Nope. I have the original mic, everything, my little Focusrite Scarlett solo preamp, and that's it. Yeah, that's the only piece of advice. Well, one of the pieces of advice I took from Bob Carter is don't buy a USB microphone. Mm-hmm. And he recommended the Focusrite brand, and the microphone is a Rockville RCM03, which turned out to be a pretty decent microphone, even though it's not that well known. And that's pretty much it. I already had the headphones. They're Sony headphones. I already had those. I already had the computer. So it cost me, out of pocket, it was $138 for the mic, the preamp, and the mic stand. So,
pretty good. And what were you saying?
Yeah.
You ordered it off online, right? You just ordered it online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
I got the mic and the preamp in a bundle from eBay. I got the mic stand from Sweetwater. And, yep, that's it.
Awesome. Well, why don't you talk about your day a little bit? Do you schedule your day in a certain way? This is one of our questions.
Yeah.
Do you have like a timeline, or do you set aside a certain time of your day where you do all your auditions?
Yeah. Usually, I get up at the crack of noon, and just kidding. And no, I'll get up, and then I'll have breakfast, feed my 5 cats. I have 5 rescue cats, and then I'll look at I'll go get on the computer, see if I have any messages, and I'll check the auditions for that day, and I'll go through them and delete any of the ones that I think are not appropriate for me, and then I usually do it by deadline. That's the way I do it. Like the ones that are getting closest to deadline, I'll line those up first, and I'll get them all lined up in my browser, with tabs, all the ones that I think I'm most interested in for the day. And then I'll head into the studio, aka closet, and and I just do them all at once. It's kind of a bulk kind of auditioning thing, and I'll do that for about an hour and a half, and get all the auditions in, and then and then have lunch and do some other stuff, and then I'll come back later and see if I've gotten any messages. If I've gotten a job, I'll go in, and I like to get if I get a job, that doesn't require a directed session, I like to get it done right away. I don't like to wait. Mm-hmm. So if I have some free time, I'll just go in and do it. And that way that gives more time, in case there's anything they need redone, if there's any pickups or anything, I can just, have at least that first initial file in so that they can, get it as soon as possible so we can change anything that's not right. And then later in the day, if there's always those little stragglers at the end of the day, the jobs that come in, at the end of the day, that are like, they expire, midnight. So I'll look and see if there's any good ones, and then I might go back into my closet and do those, if there's any that interest me that look good. Sometimes there are jobs that I just, I'll just read the script and it doesn't seem like a good fit for me. There's certain things that I look at them and I say, I can do that. I can really nail that one. That's perfect for me. That's something I can really do a good job on. Or I'll read, the script, and immediately I get an idea of what it should sound like, and I get an idea immediately of how I want to do it. And so those are the ones that I kind of, glom onto first.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned one thing that I know is going to raise some questions. You talked about directed sessions.
Uh-huh.
For those that don't know what that is or what that entails or how often maybe that happens, can you just talk about that for a little bit?
That doesn't happen too often. Maybe one out of maybe 5 or 6 jobs, maybe less. They want to listen to you while you're recording to kind of give you direction so that you'll say things exactly the way you want to say them. And I don't have, there's a thing called Source Connect and ISDN, and I think those are subscription things. I don't have any of that. So I'll tell people, if you want to do directed session, that's fine, but we can do a conference call. So I'll just get my telephone out, just hold it up to my ear while I'm recording. And so they can hear me, and then, they'll mute the telephone so no sounds come through. And then they just hear me as I record. And then they'll say, that was great, but could you do it a little slower this time? Or could you put an emphasis on this word next time? You say it. Let's run through it one more. Let's do that last line once more. And so that's usually the way it goes. And they're usually about half an hour, sometimes an hour, but usually about a half an hour, depending on the length of the script. Yeah.
And so, regarding these live directed sessions, what other software do you use? I mean, to record, you probably use Audacity or Audition.
I do. I use Audacity.
Okay.
That was one of the recommendations that Bob Carter made when I went to his workshop. Yeah, he's download Audacity. It's free. And I think I might have another one on my computer, but I haven't used it. The Audacity seems to work really well. And that, I didn't really have any idea how to use Audacity, but I went onto YouTube, and there are a bunch of tutorials from people, who record voiceovers, and they said, this is how you record yourself on Audacity. You want it to be mono, you want to adjust the gain properly and all this, and how to edit and stuff like that. And so I'm still learning certain trickier edits, but I learned all the basics pretty much off YouTube pretty quickly.
Awesome.
But I've always been good with that kind of thing. In my family, I'm always the one who, will hook up your stereo or your home theater system, or can you transfer my home movies from VHS onto DVD? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Sure. So I pick up on things pretty easily like that. So it's something I had to learn, but it wasn't real difficult to learn, and I learned it pretty quickly because this all happened in a week. So it was pretty fast.
And these live directed sessions, do they ever require, so I know you were talking about Source Connect and ISDN, but usually these conference calls are just through Skype or phone calls. How do you usually?
It's usually just a phone call, and it's just somebody on the other end. And sometimes there's just one person. It's just a regular phone call, and sometimes it's a conference call that I have to dial a certain number and then put in a code, and then there'll be a bunch of people connected. But usually it's just a phone call, and they're just on the other end just listening to me, and they trust that because they've heard my audition, and they trust that my sound quality is good, so they don't care about that, because they know that they know what my audition sounded like. It sounded good, so any files that they get are going to sound like that. Mm-hmm. So I think the Source Connect and the ISDN things, I don't see that many requests for it. And I think they're kind of going away because I think people's home studios are getting so good that that's not really something that's needed anymore. And from what I'm not even I don't really understand what they are, but I assume it's kind of a thing where it's hooked up through your computer, and you can kind of listen directly to what's being recorded, as it's being recorded. And I can understand they're wanting to do that, but I think probably one day people won't even ask for that because it just seems like the quality is so good now, with the equipment that, and you can tell just by listening to someone's audition or their demos, how they sound. If they sound terrible and there's a bunch of echoes and stuff, then you probably don't want to hire that person.
Definitely.
Because they don't know what they're doing, So
have you had
yeah.
Have you had a client that's requested you to go into a studio, or everything you've done so far has been from home?
Not yet, no. I've always kind of imagined that that's the way it was voiceover artists worked, and I hope one day that I get the opportunity to do that because I think that would be kind of fun to go to a studio. But it's really convenient doing it from home, So yeah, I don't think I'd want to do that all the time, but I'd like to get one job where I had to go to a studio and record in a professional recording studio. I think that would be fun. But I don't know how, I was wondering the other day, in the 70s or 80s and even the 90s, how did voiceover artists, how did they audition? Did they audition over the phone, or did they just use did they just have reels and they just use the same 5 people over and over again? I mean, that must have been a very painstaking process, a very, very clumsy process of how, because they didn't have the internet, and I don't know how people auditioned for voiceover jobs back then. I can't even imagine, but I guess they just had to base it on previous work, and maybe they auditioned over the phone. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of, I like to talk to somebody who did it back, in the 70s and 80s.
Well, the nice thing is, and I'm glad you brought that up because, and a lot of people coming to the site, they're looking at it old school saying, well, I've got to get my demo done.
Yep.
And the beauty with a site like this and why clients like the site so much is the custom audition. And that's where, when they post the job, they give you the script and the direction they're looking for and say, give me a read from that script. That's what we're going to base this on. As opposed to, back in the day, you used to give your agent a pre-produced demo that they'd shop you around with. And it may sound fantastic, but if it has nothing to do with what the current project is, it's not a very authentic feel.
Yeah. And you kind of had to hit all the marks on that one demo. That was your one shot. Like, do this kind of voice, this kind of voice, this kind of voice, I imagine. And if you missed out on something that maybe that would have been appropriate for that job, then maybe you lost that job. But at least, the custom auditions, you can tailor make every one for that specific script and do your own interpretation of it. And, I think, your chances of success are much higher because they can really hear what you would sound like doing it.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the demos, because they are still important, but for different reasons than I think people realize. But the demos that you've put up since you opened your profile, what do you have there? Like, how many? Do you know offhand how many you have?
There might be 12 or 13. There are some. The newer ones are toward the top. There's some towards the bottom that I'm going to delete because they're really embarrassing. I should have deleted those already. But the newer ones are. One is for a job that I did that has music and sound effects, which is really cool. I think that was my second job. And that was for IoT Express. And then the other ones are just random, just kind of dry readings of things that I think have certain moods, or ones that I think I did particularly well and that showcase a certain aspect, of my voice that I think is good, things that I think I do well. That's how I kind of pick them. There aren't a whole lot of things with accents because I don't really feel that comfortable. Sometimes I do, but I generally think that a lot of times accents are best done by the people that are native to the country.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was a thing the other day. I live in Atlanta, but I'm not from Atlanta originally. And there was a thing the other day that I got invited to for somebody with a slightly Southern accent. And I said, you know what? You're better off just finding just somebody from Georgia or Alabama or whatever. But I'm from Las Vegas originally, and so I think one of the things that's helped me with voiceovers is that I don't really have a distinguishable accent, and that I think that's called for a lot. You see that a lot. They want people with a very neutral accent. But I've done jobs for Canada, and I've done 3 or 4 for Canada actually, and they seem to think I sound Canadian enough for whatever the job was, and then I've done all kinds of different things, but there really seems to be a call for very neutral accent. They seem to want people who don't have kind of affected, overtrained sounding voices. They want natural, conversational, real sounding people. So I think that, that's kind of the trend, seems to be.
Well, and we can understand why you'd have success in Canada because we don't hear out and about. We try that in the United States and people can tell we're Canadian right out of the gate.
Dead giveaway, right?
So do you have like a certain strategy as far as the demos that you put together and the ones that you put up or is it just kind of just trying to hit all the different categories?
I'm trying to hit as many categories as I can. And just a lot of times just putting up the ones that I just like the best, the ones that sound best. Things that I think I really nailed, that I, did a really good job on, that were a really good match for me. Those are the ones that I put up. And the IoT Express one that's the one that's on the top. That's the only one I have that's like a finished produced one. So I put that one up because it's got music and sound effects, and that's the only one I have that's like that. So I put that one up there, and there's no real, I don't think about it a whole lot. But because I think for the most part, people listen, they might mosey on over to your bio page and check out some of the demos, but I think generally they listen to the custom auditions. That's the main thing. Yeah. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and this is kind of why we say that the demos are important, but for pretty much more of a different reason than I think people realize. Because when you've uploaded your demos, and you would have seen this, it asks you to describe the style of that demo and the role
Right.
that you play. And you want to take advantage of these descriptors because this is what
Yeah.
helps the system know what jobs to send you to audition for. So they are important, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the auditions themselves that are getting listened
Right. Yeah, and I've talked to people at voices.com about that over the phone. About you got to make sure that you have, this box checked off, this one, this, so that when you get auditions, that you get all the ones that are appropriate for you, and you get all the ones, you want somebody, can you do a teenage voice, and you got to make sure you have that box checked. You got to make sure you have one in there that has that quality in there, so so that the algorithm makes sure that you're chosen for that. So I've been kind of making a list of all the different qualities and trying to make sure I get all of those in the one that I think that describe me, so that I get as many opportunities as possible.
Nice. So now we do have some questions coming in, which is
Okay.
great. We'd like to keep them coming.
Okay.
Again, like I said, they're for you guys. Richard's asking, so how big are the jobs in terms of scripts, and how long does it take you normally to complete a job? So this wouldn't be the audition; that'd be the job itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've done jobs that were literally like 2 lines, and I did one job that was 15,000 words. And that was for an educational thing, it was like an interactive educational thing. And it took me 12 hours to do it. And I will never do anything like that again. And not unless I would maybe do something that scale, but not with only like a 24-hour time period. I would need at least 3 or 4 days. But it was a good learning experience for me, because now, when you think of 15,000 words, it's like, well, a book is like 50,000 words, a novel. So 15,000 isn't that many, but it's a lot. And especially when you have like a day to do it. So it kind of gave me a kind of a concept of what 15,000 words is, how much work it entails. And so now I know if I see another job like that, I know how much time I will need to not drive myself nuts, and how much money, because I think that maybe the amount of money was not right. But it was mostly the time period that got me. And I was just at the end of it, I was like, oh, please, I'm so glad this is over with. Yeah, so that was the biggest one. And then a lot of them are like 500 words, it's 2-3 pages. A lot are, I read a couple poems that were, they couldn't have been more than 100 words, maybe 120 words. So some are very, very brief, and some are big, but more in like the 500 word range. That's pretty common.
And are you finding too that when you're doing the jobs that when you're basing it on the word count, how is the pay structured? Like, as obviously, because I know you talk to people that do audiobooks, and I don't know how people do
Yeah.
audiobooks, because that's a marathon.
Oh,
That's so
it just
much.
seems
It's
like-
because your voice. It's a lot of strain in your voice, but it's also a lot of editing. But they do pay
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's that Amazon thing that people do that the pay is not good on that at all. And they offer you, I was considering that for a while, but they offer to give you a percentage. But if the book doesn't sell well, then you might end up making $3, and it's a lot of work. And some were offering, like $200, $300 or something. And to me, I would not do a 50,000 word book for $300. That's just no way. That is too much work. And you're missing out on other work while you're doing that, because you're so busy doing that. You're not auditioning, so that's not worth it for me. But I guess, I haven't seen any real well-paying audiobooks listed so far. The celebrities get a lot of money for it. And I guess there are some voiceover artists who really specialize in that, and maybe they get paid well. But I haven't seen a lot of really, well-paying audiobook jobs so far, and nothing that would make me want to do it,
Is there any
at this
types of
point.
categories of jobs that you really like working?
I like the kind of dry, boring ones, like the educational stuff, the business stuff, because I think those are easier because you don't have to put a lot of interpretation. Maybe they're not that much fun, but they're to me they're just easier. But then like I was talking about, I did this woman's poems that she wrote, and that was kind of fun to do, because I got to kind of interpret them, and and they were a little bit more artistic, and so that was fun. But yeah, I mean, I like anything really, but it seems like sometimes the drier things are just a little bit easier, but I don't know necessarily that I like them better. I'd like to do something that's kind of humorous or funny, and I've auditioned for a bunch of those. I haven't gotten any yet, but there are some auditions that I did them, and I was like, wow, I really nailed that. I was good. That was really good. I did that funny. And either they never listen to my audition, which that's my biggest pet peeve is when people don't listen to my auditions, or they didn't hire me. But I still haven't gotten like a humorous kind of funny job yet. I'd like to do that. That'd be funny.
Yeah.
Well,
Fun to do.
and I'm glad you mentioned that because we did have somebody ask if you've done anything as far as character voices, if that's kind of in your repertoire, or if it hasn't been yet,
Yeah.
if it's that's something you'd like to do, or.
Not really. I did a character for an educational thing. I was playing like someone in their late teens, early 20s, I guess. It wasn't really a character voice. It was just more of I guess it's kind of a character voice, but it's, playing someone who's younger than I am. But I think I sound younger than I am, so that's not that difficult for me. So, but other like doing like, I've auditioned for a lot of video games, and I haven't gotten any. So I'm thinking, I don't know, I audition for those all the time, and that's one thing that I never seem to get hired for, the video games. But I'm going to keep trying though.
Well, and that's the beauty too of the amount of opportunity that's on this site is you get so many different types of work in so many different categories that, yeah, I mean, your first year, try it all because you never know what you're going to be good at. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself right out of the gate.
No.
Like I've had people say to me, I don't think I could do video games or cartoons, and then they audition for a few and they get a couple of them, and the next thing you know, that's now what they're known for. You never know what kind of a hidden skill that you may have.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, you should try to stretch yourself a little bit. And there are things that you're going to be better at than other things. There are some people who are more suited to do the kind of character voices, the cartoon stuff, the anime stuff. And then there are other people who they sound better just sounding like normal people. And, everybody has their own range of talent, and some things you're stronger at and some things you're weaker at, that's just the way it is. But you should try at least,
Yeah.
If there's something that interests you that you look at and say, that's something that, I'd like to try, you should try it.
Now, one of the questions that came in was, and the reason I want to ask you this, because we were talking about it before the broadcast, and it's basically just asking, like, where are your sources of the jobs that you're auditioning for? Like, are you just using voices.com? Do you have an agent? Are you using other sites? And you'd mentioned that we weren't your first pick.
No, I went with another site at first, and that was because, well, about 6 years ago, it was 2012, and I remember because it was October 2012 because my nephew was getting married in Florida. And I had seen something on the internet or in a magazine or on TV or something that kind of piqued my interest about having a voiceover career. They mentioned a site. And were you guys around 6 years ago? I don't even know.
We were.
Were you part
yeah.
of? You were, okay. But I actually set up my first profile and uploaded my first demo 6 years ago on this other site. And I didn't understand at the time, it was a free standard membership where you can't audition, but your demos are there and people can find you if they're looking for you. But if they're not looking for you, you're not going to get any work. And I didn't. But I had my demos up there 6 years ago, and and nothing happened, and I kind of forgot about it. I forgot what the question was.
You were talking about, before you came here that, just as a point of comparison, like I said, we weren't your first choice.
No, and I went with them, and then when I decided to finally dive in, this year, I went with them because I had previous experience with them in that I had my demos up there and my picture up there for 6 years, and so that's the that's the site I originally went with. And then I was with them only about maybe 3 weeks, and there were some things. I got my first job there, and I was, really surprised and shocked and petrified. But it went well, and after about 3 weeks, I decided that there was some things about their site that I didn't like. And right around that time, you guys were having a sale on your membership fee. And so I decided, well, I'm still within my refund window for them, the other place. So I thought, well, this is a good time for me to bail and go with voices.com. So that's what I did. And that's when I signed up with you guys, because I like things about your site better. I like the fact that you can audition for as many things as you want to, and also I like the way your payments come through your site. Because with the other site, you're kind of on your own. Like once the job was finished, like you were on your own. Like you had to send the invoice and tell them if you wanted a check or PayPal, and if they didn't pay you, you're kind of on your own. And I like the security of voices.com, the way with the escrow system, you're more secure that the money is there and you're going to get paid, and you don't have to worry about it, So that's one of the things, that and the kind of freedom to audition as you please. Those are the two things that really attracted me to your site.
Because you were saying that you would go days sometimes without having any jobs to audition for.
Yeah, the other site, there's a certain percentage of, they compare you to everyone else on the site, and there's a certain percentage of auditions that you can do. And if it goes above what everybody else is doing, they kind of throttle you, and they kind of put you on probation, really, for days or weeks, depending on how far out of line you've gone, until your stats kind of even out with everybody else's. And then you get, then your inbox starts filling up again. But I think it was like about a week that went by, and I kept checking every day to see if I had any auditions in my inbox, and there was nothing. I was like, well, I can't make money like this if I'm not getting auditions. If I can't audition, I can't make money. And, I was thrilled that I got that one job, but, I would like more than one. So that was around the time I thought, okay, this is I can get a refund. I'm going to voices.com because this is not working, and I was glad to see that you had a different approach to that. Mm-hmm. And, so I've been getting regular work.
So when you came over to us and you saw the amount of jobs, were you did you like the way that we kind of provided you these auditions, like the open marketplace model? And how many do you find you get a day through us?
Usually, there's usually about 50 to 60 that I'll see, and and they expire. Like if I looked right now, there'd probably be about 60 in there, maybe 55, something like that. And then some are going to expire tonight at midnight, and then you get maybe some new ones, maybe 10 or 20 new ones tomorrow that crop up. And so it's kind of constantly like rotating and refreshing, So, but there's always like 50 auditions up there at any given time. So there's plenty to choose from, And you can, if you wanted to, you could just do them all. I mean, there was one time when I deleted the ones I didn't want to do, and then of the ones that were left, I did every single audition. and my inbox was completely empty. I did everything. And that was probably maybe about a month and a half ago. And that doesn't happen too much anymore, but I'll do 15 to 18 auditions a day. Yep. And I usually start with the ones, I don't know if this is the best strategy, but I usually start with the ones that are expiring first, in terms of, and it's usually, I try to do them the day before, but sometimes it's that day, and they have usually they have an expiration date of midnight when the audition closes, and I try to get them done before that. But that's my strategy for right now. I don't know if it's the best strategy. I'm still kind of working on that. I'm always trying to get caught up, and I never seem to. I always try to get caught up on the weekend, and then Monday I'm like right back being uncaught up, But I should probably work on my strategy a little bit.
It's you know what, that's a really interesting strategy. I've never heard of anybody doing it that way, where
Really?
they start auditioning to the things that are about to expire. Because honestly, I mean, if it's working for you, I don't want to tell you how to do it differently.
I don't know.
But generally speaking, I mean, if a job is posted for 3 days, even if it's still technically open, when you go to, I mean, if it's been open that long, they probably know who they're going to go with already.
I know it's not really. I don't really plan it that way. I don't plan to do it because they're about to expire. I just feel like I don't, if there are ones that I want to do, I want to make sure I get to those first if they're about to expire before I head on, because I'm like, oh, that one's not expiring till the 26th. I got a couple days on that, and I really want to do these. So it's probably not the best strategy. I don't know if I'd recommend that strategy to everyone, but that's something I have to work on. It's still a learning process.
Also, when you have like high voice match scores, you'll be more likely to be seen, even if you submit later. So
the 100%, yeah. And but anyway, I've gotten jobs off things that were like 70 or 80%. So either that means that just my profile tags aren't what they should be in terms of the voice matching, or maybe they just heard my audition and decided that they maybe wanted to go in a different direction. I don't know. But I have gotten quite a few jobs that were only like a 70 or 80% voice match.
Now, you'd mentioned, and just kind of want to put people's minds at ease, because I know you mentioned doing 15, 18 auditions a day on average, which is basically what we recommend. That sounds daunting, but honestly, how long does that actually take you? Like, how long do you spend on an audition?
Someone at your site recommended you spend no more than 5 minutes on an audition, and I don't think I ever spend quite that much, unless I'm really I'm really tongue-tied, and there are some days where I just cannot get any words out, and I'll say the same thing over and over again. It's embarrassing. If anybody ever heard these, they're like, you'd think I was like losing my mind. But usually the auditions only take me maybe about 2 minutes a piece. I'll record them, then I'll sit down, I'll edit out the flubs and do a little noise reduction, do the normalization. That's just a few clicks, and so it's only 2 minutes, but it really annoys me when people don't listen to them. That's like I said before, that was my biggest pet peeve.
Well, it's probably because you're auditioning when that's about to close.
I am auditioning too late. Yeah, so that's probably it.
How much of the script will you typically read then for the audition?
Well, usually they'll put a little snippet, a little sample on the page. Sometimes I'll also attach something that's like a PDF or a Word document. But usually if they post a little paragraph on the posting page, I'll read that if it's not too long. If it goes beyond like a few paragraphs, then I'll pick out just a portion. My auditions usually are about 20 seconds a piece. They're shorter. If they only post a couple sentences and nothing else, then they'll only be like maybe 8 or 10 seconds long. Some are like maybe 26 to 30 seconds. But I think in general, I try to get them above like 15 seconds. Like that's like the shortest I would do, if given a lot of material to read. I try to get them up to about 20 seconds usually, just to give them enough to get an idea of what I sound like. But then it doesn't take me a long time to do each one. I can probably do like 15 or 18 auditions in an hour.
Do clients ever ask for like a second audition or maybe an extended read?
Not really. No. I think maybe that's only happened one time. I think it was for a political ad, and I read the first part of it, and he said, "Could I get you to read the last part?" And I think I did that. But that's the only time. Usually if they want to hire you, they know just from what you've sent them that they want to hire you. That's it. I've never had a request for an additional audition.
Okay.
Except for that one thing and he didn't even hire me after that.
So we have a question here. So do you ever prepare your voice in any way? And do you find that your voice starts to strain or lose itself after auditioning so much?
Yeah, I find towards the end of the day, if I've done a lot of auditions or I did a job, my voice gets maybe a little raspier, a little maybe huskier. Generally, sometimes I'll do, if I'm having a particularly hard day, like saying words, I'll maybe just try to say like some like tongue twisters, like, rubber baby buggy bumper or something like that, just to get me kind of loosened up. Because there are some days that are just like, I cannot talk. And it'll just take me so much just to get through. And sometimes some of the scripts that people give me, well, they'll have two words, like a word that ends in an S and a word that begins with an S right next to each other. And it's like really hard to pronounce, like, and to have it sound natural. And I just hate those. I'm like, did you read this? Did you try saying this before you posted this? It's really hard to say, But, other than that, it's, It's not a problem usually.
Do you just skip over those parts and read another part in that situation?
Sometimes I will, if
Yeah.
I'm having a really hard time, I will say, forget that. I'm just going to the next paragraph. That's easier. And I'll just, I'll do that.
Actually, this goes into one of the questions from our audience here. So do you pick the part of the audition that you think that your voice sounds the best on, or do you just start at the very beginning?
Sometimes I will just read it right from the top. Because actually someone at voices.com that I spoke to gave me some advice that sometimes the people are listening to all these auditions and most people are going to read it, the first paragraph if there's more than one. And sometimes you're kind of fatigued hearing the same thing over and over again. So sometimes it's better to shake it up a little bit and make yourself stand out a little bit by picking something maybe in the middle or at the end that maybe not everybody has read, so that your voice kind of pops out maybe a little bit more. And sometimes I do that, and sometimes, like I said, it's just because I'm having a really hard time with a certain phrase that I just cannot seem to pronounce at that point. And so I'll just find it's something that's easier to say. Or if there's a paragraph that has a word that I don't know how to pronounce and they don't tell you how to pronounce it, I'll skip that and just go to something else because I don't want to sound like, I don't know what I'm doing. And sometimes I'll see a word and I'll actually look it up. And to get, how do you say this? And I'll look it up, I'll get the pronunciation, and then I'll go back and just to make sure that when I'm auditioning that I sound competent. Mm-hmm. And then maybe I'll be the only person who auditioned who actually pronounced this correctly. Maybe they'll pick me for that, for that reason, because that might, be something, that's good to do. I don't always do that though, but yeah.
Now, one question that invariably comes up, especially when we're talking to somebody who's had so much success, especially in such a short time, is pay. What are you finding typically the average job that you're landing is paying?
I'd say probably in the $200 range. I've had several $100 jobs. I've had a bunch of $400 jobs. I have had one job that was $1,000. Then that was last couple weeks ago. It was the first week of September. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the jobs are in the $250 range. That's usually the ones that I get are in that range, pretty much.
And what we found with the numbers too is not too far off of that. Is typically the average job is paying between in the $300-$400 between $300 and $400. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the higher paying jobs like the $1,000 ones are the ones that are several thousand. They're going to bring up the low end. We don't ever let a client post for less than $100, so you'd never make anything less than that.
Right.
Now, the one thing too that I know we do talk about with a lot of the talent, especially the new ones, is don't ever be afraid of auditioning for the $100 jobs, because there's so many clients that are repeat clients on the site that don't look at it as auditioning for a job. Look at it as auditioning for a client.
Right.
This one might pay $100, but if they like you, the next one might be $800. Have you?
That's right.
I know you've only been with us for 3 months. Have you had any repeat business yet?
Yes, I have. There are a couple people that I've worked with more than once, and and if you do a really good job, they'll remember you. If you get the job to them early and you're willing to work with them, they will remember you and they will rehire you. And the $100 jobs, you kind of have to put it in perspective, because I mean, sometimes you'll see something and it's like you have to read 50 words or less for $100, and you're like, man, I mean, that's what, $2 a word, or yeah, $2 a word. And geez, that's great. I mean, that's a lot of money for a little bit of work. So I mean, don't look down your nose at the $100 jobs. Those are, if you get a few of those a week, that's great.
Oh, exactly.
And a lot of times it's it's less work than doing like one $400 job. The $100 jobs. Yes, I audition for those all the time, and I've gotten a bunch of them. Yeah, it's kind of a mix.
Well, yeah, and if you break it down as far as an hourly wage, I mean, 2 minutes for the audition, and then probably maybe 15, 20 minutes to do the final work.
Yeah.
So $100.
Sometimes, yeah.
That's $300 an hour that you're getting paid.
And even if it takes you an hour to do it, $100 an hour, I mean, God, I mean, that's pretty good. I wouldn't have made that much money working as a paralegal, that's for sure.
So have you ever taken a vacation from doing voiceover? And if you do, like, you bring your microphone with you on the
She's
go?
only been doing
or-
it 3 months.
Yeah, that's true.
No vacation yet.
Oh, this is our work.
Yeah, I think I'm 4 months. Well, June, July, August. Yeah, so I'm about almost 4 months in now. And no, I don't go anywhere anyway. I have 5 cats, so I have to stay home with them all the time. It costs a fortune to board them, and I don't trust anybody to come over and take care of them. So I have to stay home. I don't go anywhere. But I guess, I was thinking about that the other day. Like, if I did go somewhere, what would I do? Like, would I bring my microphone with me? And I've seen people on YouTube who do voiceover work, and they show how they have their kind of travel kit, and then they'll be like in a hotel room, and they'll be putting like pillows all over the place in the closet, to make like a booth for themselves, and they have special little recorders that they use instead of a computer, with like flashcards and stuff, and not flashcards, flash drives and memory cards to record on. And so, yeah, I mean, there are ways to do it, I guess. I don't know if I want to be thinking about that, though, if I was on vacation. That's not really vacation. If you got all your
Well, you got to spend your hard-earned money somewhere, right?
That's right.
Now, we do have still a fair number of questions coming in. So I think what we'll do is just kind of spend the next few minutes trying to, hammer away at some of these. If we don't get to your question, I mean, please don't be afraid to email us, and, maybe we can answer it, and we can reach out to Miel and if we don't get to it as well. All right. So Sean is scrolling through, and you just pick one that you want to ask.
Okay, so let's see. I know we got to some of these already, but so let's talk about. I know we talked about some categories you like to work in, but here's a question for you. Is there a dream job that you would like to get in the industry, or a dream role?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I had a feeling somebody was going to ask me that question. It would be fun to be like the voice of like a robot, like in a science fiction movie or something. I have a friend actually who makes films. His name's Tom Getty, and I told him that if you ever make, a science fiction film and there's a robot part in it, I want the robot part. But yeah, that would be a dream job, to have a voice of a robot in a major motion picture or something, in a cartoon or something. But they usually get celebrities to do that kind of stuff, though. But it'd be great to just get like a national, like, orange juice commercial, or to be the voice of, the woman on the telephone that goes, if you'd like to make a call, please check the number and dial again. If you like instant mortality, like one of those kinds of things. But yeah, that would be great. Or it might be fun to just, sometimes I think about it would be fun to be like the sidekick of a radio personality, like on a radio show, because I like to give my opinion about things, and that would be, I don't know if I'd be any good at it, but that would be kind of fun. Yeah, so those are all things that would be like dream jobs.
Speaking as someone who was a sidekick for a number of years, it is a lot of fun because you don't really have to know anything. You just have to have a big mouth.
You just have to have an opinion, right?
For years.
Oh, did you? I did. Oh, that's great.
So an interesting question, and not one that doesn't come up a lot. Is it possible to work overseas doing voiceover? Now, we'll let you handle this first. I mean, but it is a very valid question. Yeah,
I mean, I've gotten job offers. Well, actually, there was somebody that contacted me from China, and it was about a video game. And she was asking me about the time zone, and would you be willing to work with our time zone, which would have been like 2:00 in the morning here. And I said to her, yeah, I'd be willing to do that, And then she never contacted me again, but they evidently found somebody else. But there are job offers from all over. They're like from Dubai and Russia and China and Ukraine, and I guess they do a lot of video games, in those countries. And yeah, they're England, all over the place,
And you're exactly that. Like, that's the biggest obstacle you're going to face is the time difference.
The time difference.
If you're, because it's done online. I mean, you can do it all from home. It's just a matter of, do you want to be up at 2 a.m?
Right. And if they want to do a directed session, I mean, if they don't want to do a directed session, you can do it on your own time schedule. You can just do it, and then maybe when they're sleeping, you're doing it and sending it to them, and then when they wake up, it's there. So so that, I think that would only be kind of an inconvenience if they wanted to do a directed session and they wanted to work on their time schedule. But other than that, it doesn't seem it would really cause a problem. And it's great because you don't have to travel. I mean, I've seen a lot of job offers that say we need you to be in the New York City studio for this. I don't know why, but I don't know. But so there was one that was a big job. It was many thousands of dollars. And I thought to myself, well, if I got that job, I'd be willing to fly to New York to do
Right.
it, because the money's that good, it'd be worth it. But you don't see too many of those anymore. It's mostly, they just want you to record from your home. And again, that's another thing, because it's the sound quality is now so good and the equipment is so good, and that it's within reach for everyone, that there's not that much of a need to record in a studio location anymore, that there used to be.
How about national opportunities? Have you gotten any like U.S. wide spots or?
No, I've done a lot of internet things. I did one. I got one national. Was it national or regional in Halifax in Canada for that was a TV commercial. I'm not sure if it's regional or national though. I forget. But that's the only like broadcast television thing that I've done. Everything else has been pretty much either like internal business stuff or educational stuff or like internet stuff. I haven't gotten any like. I've done a couple of political ads that are going to be like regional, for like Florida or wherever. No national American television or radio spots that I know. But yeah, I mean that's something that I'd definitely like to do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
A question that probably is a bit more for Sean and I. Just asking: is there a big need for British accents in America? And I wouldn't even say in America, because this obviously, because it's an online platform, it's worldwide. We cover over 100, and I don't know, last time I heard it was 130 different languages and dialects. I mean, there's work for everybody. So don't focus on geography, because again, with the nature of the online platform, I mean, it's all right here. So yes, there's definitely plenty of opportunity for British accents.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I see them all the time. Yep.
Yeah, and did you? I know you said you don't do too many accents, or you don't like to. You like to leave it to those those actors.
Generally.
But how did you like find your voice? Here's a question we have. Like, did you develop it? Did your coaching help you find your voice, or did you just naturally have it?
I don't know. I didn't really have any coaching, but I've always liked recording myself. When I was thinking about this the other day, when I was about 12 or 13, I asked my mom to buy me a little cassette tape recorder, which is what we used to use to record ourselves back in the old days, because I'm old. But I asked my mom to buy me a tape recorder for my 12th or 13th birthday, and I would go around to all my relatives and ask them. I would like interview them. I had my microphone, and they would pretend they were celebrities, and they would answer me like I was interviewing them, and they would sing. And I used to take my books, and I guess they were like the first books on tape, because I used to read my books and record them on tape. And then I would get friends of mine to, like, we'd write scripts, and we'd do like these little audio, like radio shows with like sound effects and things. And so I've always liked to record myself. So I guess I've always kind of been comfortable with like talking into a microphone, but I didn't know, when I was that little, when I was 12 or 13, I didn't know that was a job, to do that kind of thing. But I've always liked to record myself, and, I like the process of recording. I think it's interesting. But so I guess it just, I don't know, just like you like to hear yourself talk. I don't know. I guess just listening to myself on tape and knowing what I sound like. I don't know. It's kind of it depends on the audition too, because sometimes I'll just see an audition, and and depending on what the script is, sometimes it'll just kind of dictate to you what you sound like. So if it's something that's kind of sad, you might just kind of talk like this, and kind of, get closer to the microphone or whatever. And I don't know. I don't really know that I have a voice, per se, like a sound. I don't know. It's not something that I've worked on. It's just something that kind of comes naturally. And that's the best answer I have.
Nope,
I'm sorry, it's not better.
That's a
No, it's a
perfect
good
answer.
answer.
I mean, and that's the most requested type of voice right now on the site and in the industry is natural. They want someone authentic, someone believable. They don't want that announcer guy who's giving
Right.
away concert tickets on the drive
Right.
home. It's they want
Hey, how's everybody doing? What you did? You know.
exactly. They
Yeah,
they
you know,
want the neighbor that they want to have a coffee with over the
right.
fence.
That's the trend. That's everything I see. The non-announcery, non-salesy, non-radioy, non. They want conversational, natural. You know, just yeah, that's what they want. So just be yourself. I mean, you'll know pretty quickly if you're going to be successful at it or not. You know.
Well, and the nice thing too is there are still those jobs that they're looking for that hard delivery, that aggressive, style.
Yeah.
But they let you know. They'll say,
Right.
"Here's what we want. We want the old '80s style,
Right.
Johnny Fever type announcer guy." But
And a lot of times those things are kind of tongue in cheek. They just
Right.
want them. It's like we're doing a mock thing, and we want you to sound like a radio DJ from this from the 70s or 80s, and and then if that's in your repertoire, then yeah, it's. But generally, they're looking for like kind of the friendly, warm, inviting, approachable. They don't want somebody who sounds snooty or condescending, or they just want friendly. That's the trend. I hope it keeps up that way because
Yep. No, for sure, for sure. We are coming up on an hour. Before we go,
God, it's gone by fast.
and we could do this for a couple of hours. I mean, because the stories are great and it's very inspirational. One last thing to leave people with, what do you love most about the voiceover industry?
Oh, well, it's so wonderful because I mean, your time is your own. You can do things at your own pace on your own time schedule, and you're able to use your talents, for something, and it's fulfilling, to be able to apply yourself and to use your talents for something and to do something that you feel that you're good at, and yeah, it's fantastic. And the ability to control how many jobs you audition for, that's your decision. If you want to audition for a lot or a little, if you only want to do 5 a day or 5 a week, or if you want to do 10 a day or 20 a day, it's up to you. It's very flexible and very freeing, and it definitely beats getting up and working a 9 to 5 job and dealing with traffic, and it's way better than that. Way better.
And when
especially where I live, there's a lot of traffic.
And when you started with us, I mean, obviously, and this is probably the biggest thing for someone who's new to overcome is the initial, output of money, the overhead between the equipment, the membership fee. What made you realize this is something that's money well spent?
Well, I tell you, when I got my first job, it was $200. I had only spent about $138 on equipment, and so my first job paid for my equipment, more than paid for it, and it's and the membership fee is definitely worth it because I made that back. Probably my next job or next 2 jobs I made that back. So once that's done, I mean, you're done for the year with the membership fees, and then everything else is yours, after taxes. And then that's something I haven't dealt with the taxes yet. That's something I have to deal with next year. But yeah, I mean, it's a really small investment for, what you get. It's worth every penny, I think, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on equipment. That's a mistake I think a lot of people make. I think that's, don't buy a USB microphone. That would be one thing I would tell you not to do. That advice was given to me, and it's good advice. Don't buy a USB microphone, but you don't have to spend a lot of money on a microphone. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to buy a $3,000 microphone. You probably don't even have to buy a $300 microphone. It's, I think mine retailed for $50, and I got it in a bundle. So it really only cost me $18 if and it's you don't need to spend a lot of money, and the money of the membership fee is well worth it. And yeah, definitely.
And don't ever be shy about reaching out to your account managers, whether it be myself or Sean or Katie
no, they're
or
very
Randy.
helpful.
There's a lot of times there might be a promotional offer that is available to you. And that being said, too, unfortunately, we didn't get to all of the questions because you've you've been so good, and so many you've generated so much interest from people watching. If we didn't get to your question, please don't be shy. Don't reach out to us, whether it be an email or a call, and say, listen, you didn't get to this question. I'd love an answer.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we're here to help you in any way we can.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
respond back to the webinar email, and you'll get right directly to us.
And don't make the biggest mistake I made, which was waiting so long. I waited 6 years from my initial, making a profile to diving in. Just do it. Don't procrastinate. I'm kicking myself. I wish I'd started doing this 6 years ago.
Perfect. Well, again, Miel, thank you so much, for being with us today. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it's
been
always a pleasure to see people doing so well, especially with, like so soon out of the gate. It shows everybody that it is easily possible.
It is.
And yeah, so thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye.